Hello Internet, and welcome to a new tutorial. Remember a while ago I made the Squelch OG tutorial where I used Ableton's analog device to create these juicy squelches? Well, if you don't remember that tutorial, I'll leave a link to that. But if you do, well, I can confidently say I found two substitutes. One is free, one is paid, that works on Windows, Mac, Linux, and they are available in VST, VST3, AAX, and audio units formats, so there's no excuse in here. But before we dive into the tutorial, if you'd like to support the channel, you can consider becoming one of my Patreon or buy my presets on Gumroad, or just leave a like, comment, subscribe. Content like this is posted every week, special content for the Patreons. Now, with that said, let's dive into this tutorial. So, the sound I'm talking about is this one. Juicy, juicy squelches. Now, let's see the paid option. So, actually, both options comes from Tal. They're developers from Germany. They make awesome VSTs. They sound really good. And the paid option that I'm talking about is the Tal-Mod. Now, this is like a modular synthesizer, but it's pretty interesting because it has something I really like. Two filters that we can route in parallel or in serial. And you know, I love these things. So what I'm going to do in here is, well, first off, I'll copy this pattern here just to make things quick. So if I'll turn down oscillator 1, oscillator 3, I'll use oscillator 2. Why? Because I just like using oscillator 2. Sounds like this. Nothing too special, just a raw saw. Now let's take it a couple of octaves lower. Now we have this. So what I'm going to do in this tutorial, I'm going to replicate exactly what I've done with the Squelch OG tutorial, meaning that I'll modulate the pitch of the oscillator with an LFO, and I'll play with the rate of the LFO, and then I'll play with the filter, and this is where basically the magic happens. So in here, I'm going to route the first LFO to the second oscillator, pretty simple. Click in here, up, and I'll route it to the frequency. Now if I'll click on the button in here, I can control how I'm modulating the second oscillator. So I'll crank that modulation knob all the way to the right. Now we have this. But that's not enough, like the range of the modulation is a little bit limited. So what I'm going to do, I'll click in here again, and the control amount, I'll set it to +2. So now we have this. Pretty nice. Now what I'll do, I'll just record a modulation on the rate knob in here of the first LFO. But what I'm going to do, I'll set the first LFO to sine. And now let's record some modulation. And as you can see, I didn't do anything fancy. I've used the mouse to modulate the rate. So just what I'll do in here, I'll modify the beginning of it because I think I went way too fast. So I'll go something maybe like this. Perfect. Now, here where the magic happens. I'll set the filters for now on parallel because I want to use only one filter. I'll take the first filter and I'll set it to bandpass 4. And I'll crank that resonance up and check this out. Man, that thing sounds really good. Let's give it some volume. Let's give it some delay. And you know what? I'll just set the LFO to trigger every time we hit it. So it'll start always from the same phase. And now we have this. pretty juicy. And now what I'm going to do, I'll push, let's say, the juiciness a step forward by using the filters in serial mode. And instead of using a bandpass 4-pole, I'll set it to a high-pass 2-pole in here. And the second filter, I'll set it to, let's say, low-pass 2-pole for now. I'll offset them just a little bit, and I'll crank the resonance on only one of the filters. Okay, so it's going to be the high-pass filter. And now when I'll play with the cutoff link in here, I'll control the cutoff of both filters. And now we have this. Man, that sounds really juicy. This is just awesome. Isn't this just like way too juicy? And what's really interesting in here is that now I can set it maybe to a low pass 4-pole and we'll have this. Or I can set it to a low pass 1-pole. The interesting part in here is that I have these two filters and I can create my own basically bandpass filter with all of these combinations of high pass 2-pole, high pass 3-pole, low pass 4, 3, 2, 1-pole, whatever you like. I like how it sounds on high pass 2-pole, low pass 2-pole, while the filters are a little bit offsetted, but you can do whatever you like, you know. It's just too juicy and I really love it. Now let's move to the free option. So the free option is a little bit limited compared to the Tal-Mod, the paid option, but it can still get like some juicy sounds out of it. So let's insert a MIDI track in here. Let's copy the same pattern that we have, and it's the Tal-Mod NoiseMaker. Yes, it's been a while. I haven't showed it on my channel, and they've changed the GUI since the last time, and it just looks awesome. It still has the same awesome sound, but just a nice modern GUI. So sounds like this. Let's take the sub, leave the first oscillator in here, take the first oscillator another octave lower, so now we have this. Pretty nice. LFO1, exactly just like with the Tal-Mod and the Squelch OG tutorial. I'm going to set it to first oscillator, crank that modulation amount all the way up, and now we have this. Okay, I'll trigger it, so every time we hit a new note, it's going to start on the same phase, and I'll draw a modulation with my mouse on that right knob. So let's do this. So in here, our options are a little bit limited. Filter-wise, we have only two options for a bandpass filter. We have bandpass 12 and bandpass state variable 24 dB per octave. Personally, I love how the bandpass 12 dB per octave sounds, so I'll just set it in here, close it a little bit, give it some resonance, and now we have this. Man, this thing is just way too juicy. I love it, and it's free. Now let's give it some delay, and now we have this. And this thing just way too juicy. I love it. I love it. I love what Tal does, and I love the juiciness of these filters, man. They're just awesome. And again, it's free. And with this is the end of this tutorial. Man, these things just sound awesome. And here you are, a couple of substitutes, free and paid, for the Ableton's analog Squelch OG thing. Hope you've liked it. See you next time.